Hello, my beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Manifestation Babe podcast. Surprise, I'm back. Hello. I missed you. I hope you guys missed me as much as I missed you, or otherwise this podcast is going to waste, right? Someone's got to be listening to it. So I have had quite the year. I don't know if you guys can relate to this, where 2025 felt like a slingshot year. Like we just got put into, if you know how slingshots work, you gotta pull back to fire them forward. I feel like so many of us have been so stretched and pulled back and pulled back and pulled back and pulled back, and we are just ready to fire. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to fire. So I don't know what we're going to call this. I really let go of giving labels and identities to things this year because I feel like I've gone through such a massive identity shift that I'm still going through it. And so putting things in a box and officially calling this an unretirement just doesn't feel right. Calling this a temporary unretirement doesn't feel right because I just don't know where God is taking me now, okay? God is putting me right here, right now on my podcast. God is putting me back into Manifestation Babe for the next 2 months because I'm coming back to live teach 2 programs. And I'm just excited about that. And I'm just taking it on a moment by moment basis. I am also pregnant as fuck. I'm 28 weeks pregnant. So eventually I am going to be giving birth. So I can only go for the next couple of months before I tap into that beautiful, gorgeous, blissful newborn bubble that if you've been a mom or are a mom, you know what I'm talking about. Like that beautiful, gorgeous season of just slowing down and spending time with your newborn. So we got to do that. But for the moment, let's call it temporarily unretiring, because you guys, I just think that teaching and transforming is a part of my DNA. I feel like if I'm not teaching or transforming somebody, I feel like I'm not living. And I'm pretty sure my family is just sick and tired of me at this point. I feel like all of my coaching and channeling is being directed at my family, and they're probably just like, shut the fuck up, Catherine. Just let us live. Just let us have a negative thought. Just let us not do our affirmations for one day. Just let us get through the day without thinking about how we can maximize this day. I'm sure they're sick and tired of me. So anyway, I just think that teaching and transforming is my therapy. It really is. It makes me happy. It's my gift to the world and just who I am as a human being. And I thought to myself, you know what? I want to have a little bit of fun before I give birth. So here I am. I just don't think retirement will ever be like this real thing for me, because regardless of how much I evolve and how many breaks I take to fulfill my dream of being a stay-at-home mom for my kiddos, like I said, I'm always going to be a teacher. I'm always going to be a transformer. And my kiddos, of course, will always take number one priority. It is my dream life to be a stay-at-home mom, in the sense of not missing anything from my kids and just spending as much time with them as possible, and having spaciousness on my calendar where I don't have meetings to go to. I don't have scheduled, planned things aside from things that have to do with my family. Like that is my current level of my dream life. But I feel like Orion is kind of in this place right now at almost 3.5 years old, where I do have pockets in my day where he's busy with things. He's more independent. He's now potty trained. He goes to Montessori. He has nap time, which is how I'm recording this podcast now. And so like, what the fuck am I going to do in that time is what I've realized. So for the moment, I am back, baby, and I'm so excited to be here. So this episode is titled, surprise, I'm back, How I'm Alchemizing the Hardest Season of My Life into Gold and Bringing Fresh Energy into 2026. So one of the programs that I'm going to be launching, which is officially one of them, enrolling as we speak, as we speak, people. Okay, so surprise, it's called the Limitless Year. Now, if you have taken Epically Aligned before in the past, which I have launched, I think every single year since 2017, Limitless Year is formally known as Epically Aligned. I decided to give it a little rebrand to spice up the name. I needed to do something like different for me to get excited about it, even more excited about it than I already am. And of course, I'm going to give it a little update, adding a few things here and there, and also adding in new tools and insights, especially that I learned in the most challenging season, the hardest year that I've gone through so far. And then I'm teaching it live. So if you've taken Epically Aligned before, you will get access to the Limitless Year recordings. But if you want to take it live, and I do highly, highly recommend you taking it live with me and this brand new round of students that are currently enrolling as we speak, it's just going to be a small investment of like $99. So a small investment to basically cover the costs of you joining in live. And that way you don't have to wait until the recordings come out and you can be with me in my live energy, because I feel like I do my best with my live energy. I feel like sometimes when I'm just sitting in a stale room pre-recording something, I'm just a little bit more of a dead version of myself. I feel like I really come alive when there's eyes on me and ears actively listening and people engaging with me. So I love it so much. And of course I missed it so much. So I'm going to share some more details about the Limitless Year towards the end of the episode. But if you're like, you know what? I know I'm ready to dive into one of Catherine Zinkina's live programs, because everything she releases is life-changing and has never steered me wrong, if I do humbly say so myself. I really do give my all to my programs. If you've ever been a student of mine, you know that to be true. Or maybe you're a brand new student and you just think that now is the time to finally work with me. Like you feel the pull, you feel the call. Pause this episode right now. So let's shut Catherine up. Pause this episode. Go sign up at manifestationbabe.com/limitless, and then come back and push play knowing that you've already enrolled and we can continue this fun episode. Actually, I don't know how much fun it is because it is more of a not a serious topic, but I'll be talking about some painful things. But it's fun in the sense that I've learned and transmuted and have grown so much this year. And I just want to share the top 10 things that I learned from the hardest year of my life and how I've taken the lessons that I've learned and alchemized them into a greater sense of purpose for myself. So go sign up, manifestationbabe.com/limitless, and then come back to the episode and let's continue. Okay, what else is new as I take a sip of coffee, which I'm recording this episode a little bit later than I would like to. It's almost 3 p.m. and I'm not sure if I should be drinking coffee right now, but I'm already halfway in and we're just not going to stop. So I'm officially in my 3rd trimester of pregnancy, as I've already shared. That is, I guess, in progress since the last episode. I have been really creating personal content over at my Instagram page at Catherine Zinkina. If you're not following yet, my personal page where I share things on, motherhood, day in the life, vlogs, date nights, marriage, just anything outside of personal growth and teaching, you can find on there. I just think I've been having so much fun with that. I've been like being a little influencer on there and I just have so much fun with it. So you can go ahead and follow me on there. And then aside from that, you can expect to see more of me on the Manifestation Babe Instagram, as of course I plan to promote my 2 live programs this winter. So I have something else that's new and exciting coming out in January. And I'm sure you guys have missed seeing me pop up live and in the flesh over there. So you're going to see a lot more of me in the next 2 months on that Instagram page. So if you're not following Catherine Zinkina or Manifestation Babe, either or, make sure you push that follow button. Okay, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, because what else has transpired since my goodbye episode and my hello again episode. So you guys know that my grandma first of all, my grandma is one of my closest family members. She is the light that I needed in my childhood. If you're familiar with my story, you know that my childhood, as many people's childhoods, right? I'm not the only one, but it was a very, very dark time in my life, a very trying time in my life, just a very hard, sad childhood. And there was always one consistent, there's actually two lights in my childhood. One of them was my best friend, Vivian, who I grew up with, and just someone that I could escape my house to and go over to her house and have sleepovers and do girly things. And I've really, really, really cherished my time with Vivian growing up. She has been a lifesaver for me. But in terms of my family, my light, my savior, someone who has brought a lot of happiness and joy into the darkest parts of my life and the darkest times of my life was my grandma. You guys know that this is the grandma that I built Manifestation Babe on her couch. So I say grandma, I lived with my grandparents. Yes, I know. I get that. I love my grandpa too. A lot of people think this is like something against my grandpa when I say grandma's couch, but it's because my grandma is just my most connected family member. It's just someone who, when I went to my grandparents' house, I associated as like, I'm going to go hang out with my grandma, because we just were the best of best friends growing up. You guys know from the last podcast that she had a stroke on, I'll never forget the day, March 13th of 2025. And did I tell this in the last episode, how I had essentially this premonition that someone in my family was going to pass when I saw those, I always forget the name of those cars, the ones that drive the caskets to between the funeral home and the cemetery. So, and then not even 20 minutes later, I got a call from my grandpa that my grandma had a stroke. But it was a very interesting premonition, because at first we had a lot of hope for my grandma. And we thought that she would recover. She spent time in a couple rehab centers, and then was on home health at my house when I shared that. And talk about timing, you guys, like the timing of me taking time off from Manifestation Babe and feeling that extreme pull to do so, and just trust and have faith that I'll be taken care of and everything will be taken care of during that time. Talk about the timing. Like, in hindsight, there was no way that I could have continued launching, attending to my team, attending to my audience, podcasting, just doing the day-to-day stuff in my business with the amount of healthcare workers that I had coming through my home. And eventually the update that I'll share, what ended up happening with my grandma, and how it was just a total full-time caretaking job. And not so much physically, because I feel like my grandpa took the brunt of, the most of the physical part. He was her feeder, right? He would feed her. And then we had staff who would clean her, bathe her, right? Do things like that. But just the emotional and psychological, amount of space that took up. It's like, I thank God every single day for the intuitive pulls that I get of whether I need to slow down or whether I need to speed up or just jump into things or jump out of things. I just really learned to trust God through this season, because in hindsight, there was no way I could have kept running Manifestation Babe anyway, right? And so essentially, my grandma, since I recorded my last episode, just had major decline. I could go into details and share with you exactly what happened when. And to be honest, I already am re-recording this episode. I started recording it, and then I just got really lost in the sauce over here around so many details where I'm like, we're never going to get to the actual teachings, the actual learnings, the actual points of this episode. So I just started over to make it a little bit more concise. But essentially, long story short, she really declined right after that episode, you guys. It was crazy. She ended up going from home health to hospice. There was like an ICU stay at some point. She was in and out of the hospital, would spend like sometimes 2 weeks at the hospital at a time. Hospice kept coming by, and like my family at first really resisted hospice because I think like the meaning behind hospice means that this person's going to eventually die, which is not true. I learned that it's not true, that people come back from hospice all the time. It's not the end, but it's a way to get as much support for the family as possible. And I'm so grateful for the amount of nurses that would come out to take care of my grandma, the 24/7 hotline that we had, access to her nurses, the fact that we had someone bathing her 3 times a week, and just a lot more support than we would have gotten through home health, right? And so starting around September, my mom and I would start hearing from her nurses that they're seeing signs that she has maybe a few weeks left to live. And around this time was when my grandma stopped recognizing me. She stopped recognizing my whole family. I would ask her, mind you guys, I'm pregnant at this point, and she loves Orion so much. She really loved the process of welcoming her great-grandchild last pregnancy. And so I really used my pregnancy this time to connect with her. I would always show her my belly. I would ask her, do you think it's a boy or a girl? Or when do you think they're going to be born? Or they're going to be an Aquarius like you? And blah, 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 blah. And it's like the reactions that I used to get, the smiles I used to get when I would walk into her room just ceased. And I can just see all over my grandma's face, starting around August, of just like, get me the fuck out of here. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. Get me the fuck out of here. I'm done. And I understood that. And, you know, more than some of my other family members, some family members had a harder time letting her go. I really wanted the best for my grandma. And I just knew, like, listen, if you're not going to be improving and you're only going to be getting worse, like, yeah, if you're ready to go be with God, please be with God. And I started sharing that with her starting around September, late September, having conversations with her around the afterlife. And I think my grandma was someone who was scared of the afterlife. She was very religious and had like this, you know, this idea of heaven and hell. And I was explaining to her how my shaman has taught me over the years of what really happens after death, and how there is no such thing as heaven or hell. There's other dimensions, and everything on the other side is just pure love. Like, God is just pure love. And yes, like the souls who commit horrible, terrible acts, they do learn their lessons. They do get karma for it, but it's not like they go burn in hell eternally, right? So I was just trying to explain that to her from a non-religious sense to give her some peace and calm. And I would ask her, do you know who I am? Do you recognize me? And she would say no. Like, she would just, I mean, she didn't talk. She was completely nonverbal. Some people would give me the wonderful idea, I guess a lot of people do this on hospice, of like interview your grandma and have her share, you know, some memories and stories that you can record and keep forever of things you didn't know about her before she passes. And I would always say, that's a great idea, but she literally doesn't talk. She doesn't talk. She doesn't move. She's like a vegetable, and has been since like May of this year, maybe like 2 months after a stroke. She really stopped speaking. And that was heartbreaking, you guys, when she would nod no, you know, and right before, my grandma and I have this thing where we wave to each other. I'm not going to go into the details of everything around my grandma, because again, I really want to get into the teachings of what this year taught me, and how this year had a lot more to do than just the passing of my grandma. But this was, of course, the hardest and most significant portion of 2025. And so eventually we got to a point where the nurses started saying she's probably days away. My grandma started having seizures. These seizures essentially sent her into a coma. And then her nurse eventually said she's now started the transition into the afterlife. Like, this is what transition into death looks like. This is the active dying process. I don't know if you guys are aware of what the active dying process is, or what it's like to literally watch your family member die. It's incredibly traumatic. I've had to do like trauma processing around it. Going through this pregnant, 0 out of 10 recommend. Very emotionally challenging. Giving my grandma in her last, she ended up transitioning for about 2 weeks. So she was in a coma for 2 weeks, and we had to give her morphine every hour, on the hour, as well as like anti-anxiety meds, just because she was feeling anxious. We could tell. And we were just, at this point, it's like, I have my, opinions of big pharma, and I've always wanted my grandma to lean more on taking care of herself and not relying on big pharma for everything. But at the end of life, it's like, who fucking cares at this point? So giving her lorazepam every 4 hours and morphine every hour, and that being the most draining, like, physical thing, because it's like, 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m. Someone's got to do those shifts. And so my family would all break together. My mom was there. My husband was there. My grandpa was there, and I was there. And like every hour, someone was taking care of her and just giving her pain meds. And she's completely unconscious at this point. And I just remember every night I would do the night shift, because my grandpa would sleep in his own room. I'd sleep in my room, and I was waking up in the middle of the night peeing anyway, because I'm pregnant, and at least 3 to 4 times a night. So I figured like I would be the one to do night duty. And there was just like this moment of impending doom that I would feel, where I never knew when I would go into her room and she would not be breathing anymore. And I cannot explain that. Like, for anyone who hasn't gone through it, it is the most unnatural, fucking weird situation, because it is in our human nature for the most part, for most people, in their human nature to want to save somebody when they're struggling to breathe, or when they're dying, right? You usually save them. We do life-saving measures, but in this case, the goal is to let them die. And so I never knew when I would come in her room and she would no longer be there. And around day 14 of her being in transition, I remember walking into her room with Brennan at 4 a.m. I would have Brennan come with me, around that time, because especially at night, because I just felt like I'd be a little too traumatized if I found it by myself, like found her passed by myself. And so he came in, and I remember it was 4 a.m. and it was time for her lorazepam dose and morphine dose. And I gave it to her, and I remember noticing her breathing was very, very shallow, very rapid, very shallow. And there's all these signs and different symptoms and things that people, as they're actively dying, their bodies will do. And she's shown all the signs, like on and off, on and off, on and off. Like she would come and go, come and go, come and go. And we're just like, even her nurse was like, I don't know, like some patients are just mysteries. Like I thought she would pass for sure within a couple days, but she's still going. She's a very strong motherfucker. Let me tell you, my grandma is a strong, stubborn motherfucker. And I think every woman in my lineage, it's like the Slavic woman, like we will continue. We will be resilient. We will we're like cockroaches. Like you cannot destroy us. Right. And so they're just like, her vitals are perfect. Like she's still actively dying, but her vitals are perfect and it makes no sense. But, I remember noticing her breathing changing, and then 2 hours later, I fall back asleep. I wake up to knocking, like aggressive knocking, like panic knocking, and it's my grandpa, and he's like, I think she's gone. And of course he's crying, and every single day is like so emotionally taxing because we're always crying about this. Like you're grieving. I've been grieving my grandma's death since essentially March. And now we're like in the extreme grieving stages, but not necessarily the biggest grieving stages, because technically she's here, but she's almost not here. And it's just like a very confusing time. And I remember asking him, like, well, what's your measurement? Like, how do you know? And he's like, she feels like she's cold in certain parts of her body. And I just remember walking with him and being like, let me check, because she's been on and off cold and hot. And so I don't think that means that she's gone. But I always check her pulse. Like, you can see her pulse on her neck. And so I can check her pulse. And anyway, so I remember walking into her room, and guys, I've done EMDR on this because it just seared into my fucking brain. Came into her room, and I usually see a shadow of a pulse on her neck as like a way to tell me, like, okay, she's still going. And it was completely flat. It wasn't there. Fuck, I need more EMDR. It wasn't there. And I just looked at my grandpa and I nodded at him and I said, yeah, there's no pulse. And that's that update. My grandma passed away October 26th. I spent my birthday by her side, thinking she was going to die any moment, wondering if she chose her favorite person in the world's birthday to pass, but she decided to go a little bit longer. And, we had her funeral a couple days later, and I am so glad we did an open casket, because the way they made my grandma look, so beautiful. So like, I was like, maybe she's still alive, because she looks fucking amazing. They made her look amazing. And I'm so glad, like, if you're choosing to bury someone and like they want to be buried, like, I know I want to be cremated. I know my mom wants to be cremated. Brenda wants to be cremated. But like, let's say someone is getting buried, like, I highly recommend the mortuary, like dressing them up and putting makeup on them, making them look like they did when they were younger. I don't know how they do it, but she looked like she reverse aged 30 years. And it was so healing, you guys, because seeing her in those last moments and seeing her in those last 2 weeks, and fuck it, like seeing her in the last 7 months, it just like wasn't my grandma. It wasn't the grandma that I remembered. And so anyway, long story short, that's my update on my grandma. And like I said, in hindsight, thank God that things were timed in the way that they were timed, because there was no way that I could have continued showing up for so many different parts of my life while this is happening. Aside from that, there's also been a slew of other extremely painful moments in this season, many that I'll talk about later. Just because if I go on and on and on, like, this is not a podcast episode about the painful moments. It's really about like what I learned and what I want to pass on to you. And especially if you're going through a very hard time and a very hard season and going through painful things, as we all do, because it's a part of life. Like, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional, right? Pain does not mean that we're doing something wrong. Manifestation is not about bypassing pain. It's not about bypassing the winter season. It's about alchemizing those things into a greater purpose. How can I alchemize this pain into a greater purpose, and then use that greater purpose, extracting the greater purpose out of those painful moments, and then using that to create something else? That's what alchemy is, right? So that's what this episode's about. But yeah, like, shutting down parts of my business, extremely painful. Letting go of team members, extremely painful. Having the biggest identity, like, I had my shit rocked kind of identity shift. Shamanic death, like the biggest shamanic death of my life, where I didn't know who I am and what I am anymore, and what I like and what I don't like, and what I love and what I don't love. And it just was like a total shock to my system. Oh my God. Navigating, multi-generational family living together. So obviously my grandpa is going to continue living with us until his time to join my grandma comes. Hopefully not soon, many, many, many years. I have that man on so many peptides and supplements, and I got him doing affirmations now, and I got him reading You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. Like, we got him on a fucking protocol, okay? So, but like, you know, living together as a multi-generational family brings traumas and stresses and frustrations. And so, yeah, of course, things come with that don't make it easy. You know, my husband has really stepped into his purpose and really stepped into his passions, and his world of investments is fucking batshit crazy, you guys. It's like such a roller coaster that I know one day we'll talk about together on a podcast. There are so many highs and lows this year. I can't even begin to tell you the amount of scarcity and abundance and mindset work that I've had to do around money in a different way, because all of a sudden I'm not manifesting money through this avenue that I'm really good at manifesting money through. Now I've kind of given the reins to someone else, and I'm just like sitting here like, okay, you know, and how I've gone through like this emotional roller coaster around that. But like I said, one day we'll talk about it. Just to name a few things. So let's get into the alchemy of it all. The lessons I learned during the toughest season. You know, if 2025 hasn't quite panned out the way that you imagine either, like, don't you worry. Like, this is why this is coming in, why I'm coming in at the perfect moment to end the year and start a new one with fresh, cleared, renewed energy with the Limitless program, the Limitless Year program. So let's talk about alchemy, okay? This word is probably the word that I would use to describe 2025. Like, what does alchemy even mean? Alchemy essentially is the art of turning shit into gold. Actually, it's like a very early form of chemistry. So it's a very early branch of chemistry of turning lesser metals like lead into higher metals like gold. But like metaphorically speaking, you know, it evolved into a word that's used more in the spiritual community, where we take shit like painful moments, traumas, dramas, frustrations, things not panning our way, things not going our way, winter seasons, and transmuting them into our greatest triumphs. And this is what manifestation is about. It's essentially alchemy. I've alchemized so much in my life, and I just feel like 2025 has made me a so much better, stronger alchemist. I feel like the fucking alchemist at this point. The ability to reframe, the ability to see the light in every single situation takes a very strong muscle. And I think that some people build that muscle. Some people come with that muscle naturally stronger than others. Some people build that muscle over time, and some people are forced to build that muscle. I feel like my life has been a little bit of all of it, right? And so when I tell you that I've had to transmute literal shit on a stick over and over and over again into gold, into moments of absolute gold in my life, I am not exaggerating at all. So let's talk about 10 lessons, okay? We got into the lessons part. It's in no particular order. This is just random thoughts that I have. But my hope is that you walk away from this episode, especially if you are someone who's also going through a challenging time. Just if I could just help you see the light a little bit, or just reframe or give you a different perspective, then I've done my job. This is not about fixing all the problems, because I think that this is not about fixing, right? We so often think that our life needs to be fixed, or we need to be fixed. But really, truly, I think the work is in seeing the perfection of ourselves and the perfection of it all, because God is perfect and we are made in the image of God. And so therefore we are perfect too. So the very first thing is a quote that I actually scrolled by many, many months ago. Was it weeks ago? I feel like I can't even tell time apart anymore. And when I tell you that this hit me so hard, oh my God. So the quote is, life goes on beyond your limits. I'll say that again. Life goes on beyond your limits. Meaning, So what I took away from this, and like the person who posted this quote, and I don't remember, I think it was someone on X, they captioned with like an explanation of their own of what they made it mean. But here's what I made it mean that completely broke me through, like thinking that I cannot handle more. Like I'm incapable of handling whatever it is that's coming at me. So where you think your limits are, where you think it's the end, where you think that this is all that I got. Life, if you notice, life still finds a way to go on and continue. So while we're having our most traumatic moments, our hardest moments, someone in our family passes away, right? A business falls apart, something happens to our finances, something happens to our kid, like whatever it is, if you notice, life still finds a way to go on and continue. The world does not end. Even if you feel like yours is ending, the world at large isn't ending, which means that it is not the end. So it is not the end in the way that you think it is the end. Because if it was the end, if it was the actual end and you were to never continue another day in your life, even when you don't know how you're going to continue, if it was the actual end, life would end, right? Life wouldn't be able to continue. But life does, which means that you are so much stronger than your limits, which means you haven't even reached your limit. You are so much stronger, so much more capable. When you think that you cannot handle it, yes, the fuck you can, because life goes on beyond your limits. It is proof and evidence that you are stronger than you think that you are, that you actually are a fucking limitless human being. And I think that's where the inspiration for the limitless year really is coming from, is this idea that we can create limitlessness in our lives because we are limitless. And this is also commonly experienced in unmedicated birth. So I wouldn't know because I had a 43-hour labor last pregnancy. And my goal was to have an unmedicated birth, but I just didn't make it. After hour 36, get me the fucking epidural. I need to sleep, okay? Because I've been awake for 72 hours and I can't do it anymore. My goal with baby number 2, yes, I'm going to attempt an unmedicated birth again. This time in a hospital. I'm going to start in the hospital. Fuck the home birth, okay? Fuck it, because, mainly I made a decision to fuck the home birth because my home was not conducive for a home birth when I had so many things going on with my grandma. I just wanted to get out of my house. Couldn't find a birth center that aligned with me, just energetically, intuitively. Didn't like any of them locally to me. I would have done a birth center. But now I'm like, you know what? I'm already at the hospital. So if my birth does take longer than anticipated and I get exhausted, I'm already there. We're already at the hospital. But my point with this is, I prepared for many, many months for an unmedicated birth. And something I kept hearing over and over and over again from moms who had unmedicated births. Okay. So unmedicated means like no epidural, essentially, is that right at the moment when the baby was about to come out, like right at that moment when the birth happens, the mom gives up. It's like clockwork. Every single time this pattern shows up over and over and over again. The mom says, the one who's birthing, who's in labor, she says, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. I give up. I can't go on. Give me the epidural, right? Like they all say something like this. It feels the darkest before dawn. And usually it's known in the unmedicated birth community, like midwives and doulas and, whoever helps with that process, they all smile at each other when the mom says that because they know that she's right fucking there. She feels like she's at her limits, but life is going to go on beyond those limits. Like the baby is going to come, even when the mom thinks that it's the fucking end. And so life goes on beyond your limits. There's just something about this quote that has become my North Star, my guiding North Star, where I know that I'm so much stronger than I think I am. And that's really what I learned this year. The second thing is something that I heard on one of my really good friends, Jim Fortin's podcast. He also works with our shaman, Don Javier. In fact, I almost said related, but they're not related. They're brother-in-laws. So his sister is married to Don Javier. And Don Javier's shaman was Don Juan. So there's a book called The Teachings of Don Juan by Carlos Castaneda, and there's like a whole series of Don Juan. So that's the Don Juan that I'm talking about. And through a channeling that Jim told me about and has shared in his podcast, Don Juan came through and said this quote that also became a North Star for me, which is, everything was, hold on. Let me actually read what I have here. Everything is, always was, and always will be okay. Let me read that again. Everything is, always was, and always will be okay. This is like spiritual principle being guided from the spirit world. Okay. So another guiding principle, another quote that just reminds me that whenever you feel like things will never end, whenever you feel like things will never be okay, whenever you feel like you're never going to recover from something or you're never going to see the light again, I've had to do this, and I encourage you also to do this, is to train your brain. Okay, put your brain through a boot camp and train your brain to look back at all of the hardest challenges that you've had, that you've previously overcome in your life. Okay, like everything that's happened to you when you were 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old, 25 years old, whatever. Like just look back at how you ended up getting through every single thing. Like in the end, everything was always okay. The problems that you thought you had at 15 years old, it all ended up being okay. And how you always will be okay. And the same way you got through that thing that you thought that you couldn't get through before, like giving unmedicated birth or going through a divorce, right? Or losing a family member, or, insert whatever it is, you still got through it. You're still here. Things are okay. You are okay, right? You're still breathing. You still have clothing. You still have shelter. You still have food and water. Like, if we really boil it down to the smallest of things that we can appreciate, that tell our nervous system that we're okay, like we still have those things, we're still here. So you need to give your brain evidence that you're going to be okay at the end of this challenge and at the end of this season as well. The same way you were still okay after what happened to you when you're 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, whatever, insert age here, you're also going to be okay now, and you're also going to be okay at the end of this. Now, the next one, number 3, is to create an empowering new purpose to the season you're in. Find out how God is in the works behind the season. So a question that I've asked a lot of times this year is, how is this, so insert whatever challenge or situation, how is this making me an even stronger, better, more evolved, more compassionate, more empathetic, more conscious version of myself? This is something that I work through with my coach, Alex Paulos, who I believe I talked about in the last episode, who has continued to coach me over the next few months and has been absolutely blowing my mind, just blew my mind with the work that we did. It's some of the most profound and transformative work that I've ever done. He's someone who kept reminding me that what I'm going through right now is going to make me a far better teacher, a far better coach, a far better mother, a far better wife, a far better human being, because I'm going to come out more compassionate and empathetic through the end of this, where someone else can have a similar challenge, or someone else, even if I don't relate to their challenge specifically, I know what it's like to go through hard shit. I know what it's like to evolve through hard shit. I know what it's like to alchemize and transmute hard shit. And I'm able to meet this person where they're at far better than I was able to before. And just like connecting to how many new lessons and how many new teachings and how many new sharings that I will now have to provide to my future students from these experiences, which, like, how many more, epic new stories of triumph can I now add to my repertoire? And something that got me through 2016 when I was on my grandma's couch, building a business and feeling broke and wah, poor me, was I would always imagine myself standing on stage, which recording a podcast is kind of like a stage to me, like just being in front of an audience and sharing these stories, the story of triumph, the story of, rags to riches, or this big challenge that I thought I would never get through and how I overcame it, and look at what life's become as a result of me getting through this thing, and how there's a reward at the end of it, and blah, 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 blah. Like, I would always imagine that moment of me speaking on stage and sharing this story. And I would get almost excited about how one day I'm going to share this as a story, and it's going to inspire millions of people. And so whenever I go through hard shit, like so many things this year, I just would imagine okay, one day Brendan and I are going to sit together on a podcast and we're going to tell the wildest fucking story these people have ever heard. And their jaws are going to be on the floor and we're going to be like, fuck yeah. And we got through it and we did it, and look at where we're at on the other side. And so I imagine the same thing on a stage. That's what gets me, gives me hope. Right? It's not necessarily you don't want to do this in a way where you're bypassing emotions, because trust me, that's one of the lessons, which I'll get to, is you got to grieve shit. You got to feel shit. You got to grieve shit. Do not suppress it under any circumstance. I've never been someone who has taught manifestation in the way that makes you suppress and repress things, because whatever is suppressed and repressed is going to come through your subconscious anyway. It's going to come through your life anyway. So we got to clear it. We got to address it. We got to clear it. But once you get through the emotions, once you process the emotions, once you get through that shit, that really hard period where sometimes you just got to cry for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, then this is where this tip comes in of just once you start to see the light just a little bit, just visualizing, one day I'm going to tell this as a story. It's going to be so fucking good. Number 4 is a promise that I made to myself. So never taking the good times for granted, ever again. Nothing for granted. Never taking the people in my life for granted, never taking, happy moments of my life for granted, trips I take for granted, money I have for granted, insert anything, never, ever taking it for granted ever again. This season has taught me how precious life is, how precious everything is, and how we never know when life is going to switch seasons on us. And we're all going to go through spring, summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter. We can't predict when the seasons are going to change, but change is the only constant. And how we adapt to those changes and what we alchemize through those changes and what we learn through those changes and what we create through those changes is the fucking point of manifesting our dream life. Manifesting our dream life is not creating a life where everything is always perfect. It's about taking the evolutions of that our souls want us to evolve through and grow through and alchemizing it into our dream life. That's what it really comes down to. So embracing the duality of life. I have this phrase, polarity creates clarity. This is something that I've said for many, many, many years. Going through really hard shit in your life and growing through the lows is what makes the highs that much higher and that much sweeter and that much more worth it, right? That's what That's what makes us get to the end of our life, to our deathbed, and think to ourselves like, hell yeah, I did that shit. And I came out on top too, right? There's nothing exciting about living a life where there's never anything that shifts or changes or anything that ever transforms or evolves. Like if things are just constant in our lives, we're going to get fucking bored. And our souls, first of all, don't come here to get bored. Our souls come here to evolve and to create. So if life isn't always presenting us with some sort of thing to transmute, to alchemize, to evolve, like, then we're not really doing life correctly, if that makes sense. Like there's no point then to incarnate into this 3D spiritual plane. Number 5 is some tools that help me feel sane. So triggers are going to constantly come up, and it is your responsibility to neutralize them before they take over. And let me tell you, in a challenging season, they're going to take over, and they're going to take over really, really quickly. So here's just some of my tools. Number 1 is EMDR, especially when it came down to watching my grandma deteriorate in those last few weeks. Okay, this is controversial. All right. Apparently this is very controversial, but I do self-guided EMDR through a software called virtual EMDR. I found it because I'm really good at hiring people. I'm really good at seeking out help when I need it. I have no problem with that. But when it's like 11 p.m. or midnight and I'm feeling triggered as fuck and I need a tool and I'm not, like that coach or whoever therapist is like not available at that time, like I'm not going to wait until our appointment time 2 days later and just suffer for the next 2 days. Like I need to have my tools accessible to me now. Okay. So that's why I seeked out a software online to do EMDR, and I love it. I think it works so good. Okay. It was a game changer, especially when I would get severely triggered or I would experience something traumatic or an old trauma from my childhood would resurface, which happened a lot this year. A lot of things resurfaced this year. So I would use it and it was a total game changer for me. The other tool is an oldie but goodie that I've used for many, many, many years, which is tapping, EFT, emotional freedom technique, which is essentially tapping on certain points and meridians of your body to stimulate the message to your nervous system that says, I am safe, I am okay, you can relax now, everything's okay. It works so insanely effectively well. And I would use this whenever I would get stuck in a thought pattern or a belief system that makes me think that this is the end or it'll never get better or it's going to be forever, as bad as this. Then I will definitely tap on that. And I pretty much did this daily. Another tool that I reach for consistently, and especially during this time, was hypnosis. And not so much hypnosis in rewiring beliefs as I normally do or like use for visualization. Sometimes I just needed hypnosis to help me sleep. Okay. So just to keep my nervous system regulated during my sleep, since sleep does regulate your nervous system, I knew that it was imperative for me to sleep. And some nights I got terrible, terrible sleep because there's so much going on. My brain just felt like it was spinning out of control some nights, and I just needed something to help me fall asleep. And of course, hypnosis is that girl to help you. Somatic processing, doing a lot of shaking, a lot of movements, somatic movements to music. Oh my gosh, so essential for me to just move energy. Like I have been very consistent with working out in this pregnancy, which I am so grateful for. It's something I'm very proud of because I didn't do it so much in my last pregnancy. But just moving energy whenever it's stuck, whenever it needs to flow, whenever I feel like there's a heaviness in my body, I would resort to somatic processing, just to music. Just play a song and shake your body and just see what happens. It's quite cool. Talking to God is another tool. I'm calling it talking to God. I spent a lot of time in meditation just talking to God. And I would do this nonstop. 24/7. And a thought that I would always have is to give God my worries and just not take them back. Just treat God as like a parent, a universal, loving parent of mine that I could just give my worries to and just be like, God, you need to handle this. Like, I can't do it. I need your energy. I don't have my own energy right now. Like, just constantly having this open conversation with God. I feel like through this year, through this process, I've gotten 10 times closer to God, 10 times closer to, you know, creator, universe, source, whatever you want to call it. Just having this partnership with God has become one of my greatest tools. Internal family systems, which is like inner child and parts work. Whenever extreme fears or anxieties came up for me, just tuning into whatever part of me that is struggling right now, I would just have a conversation with and just see what they needed and see what they needed to hear and tell them what they needed to hear and just like see things through their perspective and share things with them from my perspective. And, you know, I used to work with an amazing internal family systems therapist. So if anyone who's like, I don't know what that is, IFS, there's like books on it. It's really, really cool modality. I've done so many sessions that I can now kind of tune in with my parts on my own. Although if you've never done it before, it's quite powerful to do it with a therapist, someone who can guide you through the process, because not everyone can guide themselves very easily through things. I have an easier time guiding myself through things, but very often, of course, I have my blind spots, which is why I hire people. But in this season, I felt like, again, I didn't want to wait for a session. I needed to do things now, and I would just source from my past experiences. That's been really, really helpful. Just calming down these parts of me that are freaking the fuck out because they feel even more uncertain than I feel. And I would just have a conversation with them and give them whatever they needed so that they could feel safe and certain again. And then my entire nervous system would then relax. Another tool is working with my coach, Alex Paulos, who has helped me undergo the biggest identity shift of my life. And I found him at the most perfect timing, because he is someone who specializes in unveiling your true personality. So what your inborn actual personality is, like the gifts and all of the quirks and the things and the uniquenesses that make you you, and taking off the masks that aren't you, and guiding you through a process to be able to do that. And he's someone who made me realize that I was wearing a lot of masks that were coming from childhood conditioning. And I didn't realize how much of my energy that I was wasting on trying to be perfect and polished and always happy and always cheerleading for everyone in my life and doing so much people pleasing. And after doing the processes with him, just the amount of like, don't give a fuck, like literally I don't give a fuck energy that I was able to embody, of just like, this is me, take it or leave it. Like there's no more acting here. Like this is me. You either like me or you don't, and I don't care kind of vibes. And just to be my authentic self and not have to be anybody else but my authentic self, and to feel special and unique and proud of who I am. And which is a pretty fucking cool human, if you ask me. Like, if I do humbly say so myself, I have really grown to love myself and to see how magical my actual inborn personality that my soul chose for this lifetime is, without all the masks covering it up. It's just been a really cool process, and I highly recommend working with him if you get a chance. I believe his website is innershift.com, and you can sign up probably for a consultation call with him or whatever. I don't know how his website works. The man is a mystery sometimes. I wish he would go on social media and post more content on there, but he's just more of an underground coach. So his website is probably the best way to find him. Then number 6, this is interesting. I learned to document everything, which is why I started vlogging again. And this came from after my grandma passing and me being so grateful that I documented the trip that I took my grandparents on to Paris back in 2023, and how much I wish I wish that I would document the last trip that we took together, which is a Disney cruise for my grandma's birthday, literally a month before she had her stroke. And I just remember like being like, oh, I don't want to vlog. I don't want to film anything. I don't want to work, blah, 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 blah. Just feeling like resentful, right? Getting to this point of feeling like really tired of constantly filming things and being on social media and like projecting myself out into the world. And it just all felt so daunting and exhausting. And I feel like I had such a total shift and reframe of like, holy shit, you guys, you never know when the people in your videos are no longer going to be there. Like you just never know when the people in your life are no longer going to be there. And so I developed like this new appreciation for documenting my life, for vlogging, for capturing things on camera, for putting the effort into filming things, into filming my life. And I think that's where the inspiration behind my personal page came from, where I'm so grateful to have those moments recorded so that I can always look back on them for the rest of my life. Now, the seventh lesson, the seventh teaching, the seventh epiphany, whatever you guys want to call these, is a really big one, especially if you're someone who's going through grief. And I've had many students ask me about how to grieve without messing up the process of manifestation. And I want to talk about this because I have been going through grief. And I'm not afraid of it messing up the process of manifestation because of this very simple principle. This very simple principle that God explained to me, which is grief is not a punisher and grace is a savior. Rely on grace in times of grief. What does this mean? So many of my students, for as long as I can remember, have always believed that grieving a family member or a relationship or an event or just some sort of a loss, like a hope or a dream that didn't happen in the way that they wanted to happen or whatever, and giving them space, like giving themselves the space to actually grieve, to feel emotions, to pause, to like lose their shit for a little bit of time, to give themselves the process space, the proper space to process, is somehow going to set them back in life. And I think that's such a toxic mindset to have, or belief system to have, because then what we're doing is we're just suppressing things. And when we suppress things, they become stronger in our fields. So if you're suppressing sadness, if you're suppressing hopelessness, if you're suppressing anger and frustration and whatever else is encompassed in grief, then you're making it significantly worse by not expressing those and releasing them and setting them free and allowing them to move through. You're setting yourself far up. Wow, words, Catherine. You're setting yourself up far worse than if you were to actually express them and release them and let them go, which only comes from feeling them, which only comes through processing them, right? Like the tools that I shared with you just now are some of the ways that you can process those emotions, like EMDR and tapping and hypnosis and IFS and all kinds of different modalities and therapies, right? Whatever works for you is what works for you. So, what I've learned in this season is that grief is not a punisher, meaning it's not something to be worried about setting you back in your manifestations. You really need to take your time to grieve. It's so much better to cry and to let it out than hold it in, because like I said, holding it in is going to be the thing that sets you far more back up than allowing yourself to feel the emotions. And you have to feel everything that comes up. Like you must, or it becomes an energetic block, right? And then grace is a savior, because yes, absolutely, there are universal laws that source has created, that God has created, that rule our manifestations. This is something that I've been teaching for so many years. I've talked about in podcasts. I have them in my courses, right? We talk about all the different laws, like law of vibration, law of attraction, law of polarity, law of mirrors, law of correspondence, law of XYZ. There's all these laws. Typically, when we break the laws and we don't follow them or go against them, we mess up our manifestations, right? If we're constantly focused on what we don't want, we typically get what we don't want. When we're focused on what we want, we then attract into our lives more of what we want, right? Those are just like simple laws, simple rules. But there is another law that exists, and it's called the law of grace. And it's one that I've had to rely on in this season, where grace is a gift from God that we never, ever have to earn. We never have to follow any specific rules or laws to receive. Okay? We just get to receive purely because we are simply a reflection of God itself. Like we are, like a drop of the ocean is not the ocean, but it contains the whole ocean within the drop. So we are like that drop of the ocean. We are like a drop of God. We're not God directly, but we contain all of God, whatever composes God inside of us. My shaman always talks about this, how God is within everything. God is pure. Like if you want to know God, I remember once asking him, like, is God real? Like 100% real? And he's looking at me like, that's the dumbest question you've ever asked me, Catherine. Like, yes, God is real. God is within everything, and God is pure love. Like God is within my coffee. God is within my, electrolyte water. God is within this I almost said microwave. Pregnancy brain, people. Microphone. God is within this camera. God is within this dress, this sweater dress that I'm wearing. God is within my baby. Like God is within everything. And we sometimes deserve a break. Okay. We deserve rest. We deserve to break free from the matrix of the 3D when we most need it in our lives. Grace is one of those things that doesn't make sense. It defies the laws of manifestation. It defies the laws of the 3D. It's one of those things that we call miracles, which miracles are the norm when you understand how the laws work. But this is like beyond the laws kind of miracles. It is truly a manifestation of God's pure and unconditional love. So you need to give yourself grace during this time and rely on grace and forgive yourself, forgive everyone, and just know that you are always guided, you're always loved, you're always protected. Something else my shaman says a lot is that gives me so much comfort is he says, if you only knew how many beings on the other side all know your name, like how truly loved you are, how truly unconditionally loved you are, and how many beings, entities, angels, whatever you want to call them, are literally cheering you on and guiding you and want the best for you and are so proud of you and would never want to do you any harm. If you only knew how many of them there are on the other side, you would never worry about a goddamn thing. And I've really had to rely on grace in times of grief. Really had to do that. Number 8, just be the best version of you that you can be in each moment of life. I think that in challenges, it's really hard to see the future. Sometimes we future trip because we look too far into the future. And sometimes we're like, I don't know how I'm going to survive another day. Like, I don't know how I'm going to get through tonight. I don't know how I'm going to get through this next hour. And so something I've had to rely on is to not worry about tomorrow or the next day, and not even worry about the end of the day, and just focus on getting through the next minute. Focus on getting through the next 30 minutes, 20 minutes, or hour of the day, and just approach it with as much love and unconditional love and the connection to God as I possibly can. And just whoever I'm dealing with, whatever I'm doing, just like sourcing from source. That's something that I've talked about on Instagram recently, is just like, don't use your own energy for it, especially when you have nothing to give. Tap into God's energy. I just literally like see a ball of light above me, and I just like bring energy down and I say, I need you to speak through me. I need you to talk to this person. I need you to handle this situation. I need you to fix this problem. I need you to be the one to deliver this message. I have no energy for it. Like, I literally need you to come down and talk for me. And you would be amazed at what happens when you set that intention, where you can use your own life force energy for yourself, for your healing, for your bodily functions, for the things that you give to yourself, right? The things that you need for yourself, your own vitality, your own emotions, your own feelings, your own processes, but anything else that relies on you interacting with the external world. Like, stop using your own energy. Just tap into God's energy, especially when you feel like your reserves are low. Number 9 is unconditional love is all that matters. So I really learned to see everyone in my family differently and with so much more appreciation now, knowing how temporary everything and everyone is, right? Like, seasons will come for everyone and everything. You just never know when things will change, when things will evolve, when it's time to let things go, when it's time to let people go. And so why are we wasting time not approaching everyone and everything with unconditional love? Right? Like, why are we wasting time here? We really don't have that much time. And the 10th lesson that I want to share, number 10, is painful endings always lead to new beginnings. It is darkest before dawn, and the next season is right around the corner. So I've looked back on every single quantum leap that I've ever had in my entire life. Like, when shit in my life got really fucking good, like, oh my God, I can't believe I manifested this thing. I've always gone through some period of doubt. It doesn't always have to be like some grand shamanic death, but it's always been a little period of self-doubt, and some period of darkness, and some period of like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know if I can handle this. I don't know if I can take this. And I find that life has this way of restructuring itself that we think is our life falling apart, when in actuality, it's all falling together to serve us for our greater good. Painful endings always lead to new beginnings, and it is darkest before dawn. So those are my 10 lessons, my 10 guiding principles. I hope they were helpful, spoke to you. Let me know, send me a DM, send me a message. I'm here now, so I'd love to hear from you. And before I go, I would, of course, love to share about the limitless year. So I know that so many of you are ready for a fresh start. Trust me, girly pop, I am there. Like, I'm there with you. And many of you this year felt like you may have taken a few steps back, but I don't believe that you've taken any steps back, because remember what I said in the beginning of this episode, the slingshot. I think that the universe just put you in a slingshot that hasn't yet been fired off. And I believe that you're about to quantum leap into some of the best days, some of the best months, even some of the best years of your life. If 2025 was a dark year for you, get ready. Get ready for light on the other side. Get ready for life to illuminate and to reveal who you truly are, and create the next year of your life to represent what you are truly capable of. So with that being said, I am so excited to be hosting my favorite ever New Year program live this year. Again, formerly known as Epically Aligned, now known as the Limitless Year. We are starting on December 15th, and I'm calling it the Limitless Year because that is the vibe I'm calling in for all of us. I'm calling in a slingshot forward, a clearing, an alchemy, a brand new year where everything just feels limitless. So inside of the Limitless Year, we are setting ourselves up mentally. We're setting ourselves up emotionally and physically for calling in not only more money, of course, more abundance, the deepest love and connections you could ever want in your life, aligned friendships that feel like soul family, first class travel around the world with your entire family. At least that's something that I am always calling in. But also like a stress-free, guilt-free rest and relaxation, because your nervous system is now doing the manifestation work for you. Like that's what the limitless year is all about, is like, how do we set ourselves up to manifest on autopilot, where we reprogram our subconscious minds, which then reprograms our nervous system to then manifest on autopilot. And a resilient nervous system fully trained to handle uncertainty that pops up along the way, always alchemizing every single challenge into your greatest opportunity. So if this sounds good to you, like I said, we're going to start December 15th. We're going to go on with 5 daily classes that are 90 minutes each, that are guaranteed to set you up for your slingshot year. So I'm going to be teaching it live. I'm going to be going it through with you. I am going to be bringing you a slew of tools that are proven to reprogram your subconscious mind to call in success no matter what. And no matter where you're ending your year and how you're feeling right now. So if 2025 is a year that has left you feeling, defeated, and you are ready to celebrate new wins, or maybe 2025 was a great year for you and you just really want to kick momentum even higher into a new gear, then head over to manifestationbabe.com/limitless. Again, that's manifestationbabe.com/limitless to enroll right now. So with that being said, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being here. If you made it to the end of this episode, you are the real MVP. You're a legit amazing human being, and I love you so much. And I can't wait to see you inside of the limitless year. And if not, I can't wait to catch you in the next episode. Mwah. Bye.